All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open the vault on a totally fascinating investigation into one of history's most brilliant and honestly most tragic minds. We're diving deep into a comprehensive documentary source that uncovers the mysterious life, the orchestrated downfall, and the systematic erasure of the absolute genius that was Nikola Tesla. You know, this isn't just your standard biography. It's a real deep dive into how a man who literally envisioned the future was purposefully left out of the history books.
Okay, let's dive into this. The source material presents us with a striking, almost unbelievable reality. I mean, imagine a man who basically built the 20th century, yet he spent the last 9 years of his life living in a hotel room, racking up debt he just couldn't pay. In his final days, completely broke and alone, he wrote a truly heartbreaking letter to his mother. So how does someone that visionary end up unable to pay for a simple meal? Well, that's exactly the mystery we're decoding today.
To truly grasp the scale of this tragedy, you have to remember we're not talking about some minor tinkerer here. We're talking about the very foundations of our daily lives. Alternating current, that powers literally everything you plug into a wall. The foundational tech for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth? Yeah, that's Tesla. Neon lights, X-ray imaging, massive hydropower systems, his mind was just a century ahead of its time. The source points out this huge paradox. Companies today build billions on minor tech tweaks, yet the actual architect of the electrical age, he died with absolutely nothing. To make sense of this, our source material organizes Tesla's downfall into a 5-part investigation. First, the Nikola Tesla paradox, then winning the current war, followed by 3 distinct assassinations: economic, the missing files, and finally, his legacy. Starting right off with Section 1, the Nikola Tesla paradox. Now, what's really interesting about this is the ultimate irony of his situation. Here is a man positioned perfectly to be the world's absolute first billionaire, right? But instead, he ends his life in room 3327 of the Hotel New Yorker without a single dime. The documentary explains his mindset through what psychologists call a messianic complex. Basically, he firmly believed he was put on this earth to serve humanity, not to chase corporate profits. He worked 20-hour days, stayed unmarried to maintain his total focus, and poured every single cent back into his experiments. His goal wasn't a giant bank balance, it was human progress. And as the source astutely notes, humanity and corporate profit rarely walk hand in hand.
Which brings us to Section 2, winning the current war.
To really understand how Tesla disrupted the capitalist status quo of his time, we have to look at his legendary rivalry with Thomas Edison. This comparison is absolutely vital. Before Tesla entered the picture, Edison had a total monopoly with his direct current or DC system. But DC was incredibly limited, right? It required these expensive power stations every 2 to 3 kilometers. Then along comes Tesla with his alternating current or AC system, which was infinitely cheaper and could blast power over hundreds of kilometers. Edison quickly realized his entire empire was threatened, and according to the source, he launched a brutal PR smear campaign, going so far as to publicly electrocute dogs, cats, and even an elephant, just to convince the public that Tesla's AC was some deadly menace.
But hey, true genius couldn't be suppressed by mere PR stunts. Tesla definitively won the current war through 2 massive historic events. First, his system brilliantly illuminated the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, safely lighting up over 200,000 bulbs all at once. I mean, imagine seeing that back then. Shortly after, he achieved the impossible at the 1895 Niagara Falls project, successfully transmitting huge amounts of electricity from the falls all the way to Buffalo, a distance of 30 to 40 kilometers. AC became the global standard, and of course, it still is today.
Moving on to Section 3, Assassination 1, the economic assassination. Despite winning the war, that very victory actually set the stage for what the documentary labels as his first assassination, an economic one. And this number here, $2.50, represents a monumental turning point. Early on, Tesla signed an agreement with investor George Westinghouse that paid him a $2.50 royalty for every single horsepower of AC electricity sold. By 1890, Tesla was already a millionaire. But competing with Edison's relentless legal and PR attacks pushed Westinghouse to the absolute brink of bankruptcy. When Westinghouse asked for help, Tesla, driven by this deep desire to see AC benefit the world rather than his own wallet, literally just tore up the contract. He sacrificed what would have been immense, unmatched personal wealth, all just to save the company. Without those royalties flowing in, Tesla seriously struggled to fund his ultimate dream project, the Wardenclyffe Tower. The source details how this wasn't just some big radio antenna. Tesla's grand vision was a massive structure designed to provide free, wireless electricity and communication to every single corner of the globe. Seriously, imagine a world entirely without power meters. That was his goal.
But to build it, he obviously needed capital. So he approached J.P. Morgan, one of the era's biggest financiers, and secured $150,000. But to get that cash, Tesla kinda had to bend the truth. Knowing that Morgan was heavily invested in oil, coal, and metered electricity, Tesla pitched the tower purely as a wireless communication tool, just something to rival his competitor, Marconi. So, the crucial point is what happened when Tesla inevitably needed more money. He finally had to admit to Morgan that the tower would also provide wireless electricity to the entire world, entirely for free. Morgan's immediate response, as highlighted in the source, was chilling. He just asked, "Where do we put the meter?" Realizing that technology would completely destroy his own energy monopolies, Morgan not only pulled his funding but actively blacklisted Tesla across the entire financial world. The documentary argues that this perfectly illustrates its core thesis. The economic system simply eliminates what it cannot monetize. Let's look at Section 4. Assassination 2, the missing files. That economic ruin leads us directly into the highly suspicious circumstances surrounding Tesla's physical death and the massive government raid that immediately followed. The timeline presented in the source material is genuinely fascinating. On January 5th, 1943, a Do Not Disturb sign goes up on Tesla's hotel room door. No one enters. Then, on the morning of January 8th, a maid finally ignores the sign, goes in, and finds him dead. Yet somehow, a medical examiner confidently pinpointed the exact time of death as 10:30 p.m. on January 7th. The documentary notes some serious skepticism here. Without modern, advanced forensics, how on earth could an examiner be so incredibly precise about a man who had been locked away and isolated for days? But what happened next is even more startling. Within mere hours of the discovery, the FBI raided the room and seized 80 trunks of his documents and research. Surprisingly, this seizure was executed through the Office of Alien Property Custodian. Now, that's an agency meant to seize assets from foreign threats during wartime. Yet Tesla was a fully naturalized U.S. citizen. So why the loophole? Why the massive rush and the legal gymnastics? Well, the source explains it was largely due to his nephew, Sava Kosanovic, who happened to be a Yugoslav ambassador with known communist ties. With World War II raging at the time, the U.S. government was reportedly terrified that Tesla's nephew would inherit the research and leak highly advanced weapon concepts directly to the Soviet Union. A lot of the fear around these weapons centered on the infamous death ray. The explainer source details this brilliant, weird story. Years earlier, a totally broke Tesla left a mysterious box at the Hotel Governor Clinton as collateral for an unpaid bill, claiming it held a working death ray weapon worth millions. After his death, government investigator John Trump, and yes, that is the uncle of Donald Trump, opened the box. Inside, it was just a 45-year-old decoy electrical resistance box. While Tesla likely used it just to cover his hotel tab, the source argues the government eagerly used this decoy to publicly dismiss Tesla's death ray as a crazy conspiracy, effectively discrediting his later work. And this brilliantly illustrates the mystery that still lingers today. Because while the government called the death ray a total hoax, fast forward to 1984 and highly detailed technical documents for a particle beam weapon were found in the Tesla Museum in Belgrade. Then, look at the 1980s. President Reagan launched the Star Wars Defense Initiative, utilizing principles strikingly similar to Tesla's. And in 2014, Israel debuted the Iron Beam energy weapon. The documentary points out that these supposedly discredited concepts seem remarkably active in modern military technology. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Assassination 3, His Legacy. This is the assassination of his legacy. While textbooks devoted endless pages to Edison and Einstein, and Marconi won a Nobel Prize using Tesla's very own patents, Tesla was deliberately written out of the history books. Out of the 80 trunks seized from his hotel room that day, eventually, after years of begging by his family, 60 were returned. But 20 trunks remain completely missing to this day. Over 80 years later, these files are still kept classified by the U.S. government under the banner of national security. Ultimately, the documentary sorcerers arrives at a powerful, completely neutral yet cutting thesis. Society loves and celebrates innovation, sure, but only when that innovation protects and enriches the existing economic order. When a once-in-a-generation genius like Tesla comes along with an innovation that threatens to provide free energy and completely dismantle the structure of corporate profit, that innovation isn't celebrated. It's systematically suppressed.
we'll leave you with this profound quote from the man himself, presented in the source material. "The present is theirs. The future for which I really worked is mine." It really makes you wonder, as we look at how history is heavily edited and controlled by those in power, what other world-changing, revolutionary innovations are currently gathering dust in the classified vaults of intelligence agencies, just waiting for a future that's finally ready for them.